wanna have a seat here, there, wherever you wanna
Where do
sit.
you wanna be?
Probably happy anyway.
You can be happy wherever you wanna be, sir.
Is everything on? Test, test? Alright, got the agenda item with you? I think that is coming back. Okay, thank you, sir.
Richard's not coming, but we've got a,
He's not?
we've got a forum, you know, he said he didn't realize.
See, I thought that as well, Peter, but apparently I'm in the minority.
Yes, Saturday, I'll be okay.
I did not print out because I thought Debbie always brings us our agenda item.
Well, we can ask her to bring it to you.
Thank you.
I just can't.
I don't think anybody has any to.
I go to board, so I gotta have to.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Nervous.
Thanks, Peter.
I got
oh,
one.
you
more.
got one.
She printed one out.
I'm prepared. I got one.
Janet and, I don't know if Janet and want one or not. Will, y'all want an agenda?
Did you have an extra one? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just real simple, one sheeter. Well, she's done.
Thank you.
Alrighty, what time is it?
We just want to make sure you got your packet.
Yes.
1 minute too.
1 minute
I have
till.
a question before we start.
Yes, sir.
How do we get the minutes if we're not on Facebook?
How do we
Do
get
you want a
them?
copy of the minutes after they're approved?
No, I mean, are they on the website, just
They
generally?
will be on the website. We have our new webmaster working, and he's actually supposed to be uploading stuff out. He's doing the transition.
Oh,
Deb, where's it at as far as,
He's still working.
well, if you need to get a copy and he doesn't have them up there, we'll get them
no,
for
I
you.
just meant as procedure, because I'm not on Facebook.
Well, he is gonna be
So they
uploading
will,
everything until he does the transition of everything over.
Okay, great.
So he started last week, but if they're not there, we can't get them for you.
No, that's fine. I don't need them, I'm just wondering.
But yeah, the minutes were, are not on Facebook, so they would go on to the website. At least that's protocol, yeah.
Okay.
And if you can't get them there, let us know, Greg, we'll get you a copy.
No problem. Thank
I
you.
can print you off.
6 o'clock. Alright, it's 6 o'clock according to Doreen's watch. We're gonna call the meeting to order. We're gonna go first to the approval of previous meeting minutes. Roll call?
You need to make sure there's one.
Oh, okay, so it's not on the agenda. Alright, gotcha. Roll call. I thought that was for Zoom only. Oh,
You
okay.
have to do it for everything.
For everything.
Make sure you got a quorum, yeah.
Okay, alright, roll call. Doreen? Here. Iva? Mary Jane? Here. Marilyn?
Here,
Peter?
Here.
so
Alright.
you've got Richard, where's he? Janet,
Janet is out of town.
who else is not here?
Richard is
Out of town.
out of town. And
That it?
that's
That's
it.
it?
Yep.
You're absent.
Alright, I need, I'm sure everyone has looked over the approval of the previous meeting minutes. We got them in a packet last week. Is there any corrections or changes?
Not for me.
I didn't see any either. Alright, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Alright, all those in favor? Is approved meeting minutes from February the 2nd. Staff and community reports. We don't have any staff approved plat report, so that's good. Building inspectors report.
That'd be me, I'm gonna get over here at the podium.
Alright.
I've got 3 or 4 issues we need to discuss. I'm gonna give everybody an idea of the process. I have a gentleman that's actually requested to buy some property on South Central Avenue. And he's actually asked me if he could put his double wide trailer there before he buys the property, which is typically what you need to do, but sometimes it doesn't happen. They buy it first and then they won't forgive us anyway. Long story short, Janice Patel, and it's 208 South Central. It is a corner lot, and he has sent me a site plan of his unit and the setbacks on the property. Okay, because it was on a permanent block foundation and made to look like a site-built home. Now, that's a double wide, and single wide you can't, but double wide you always could. So I went to our little book and looked, and it's R3 zoning. So I went to a little book and I looked, and I say, oh Lordy, R3 is not a zoning district for a double wide modular home. It's not marked, and I don't understand why that wouldn't be.
You're right.
I mean, really, anyway. So I want, and the other issue is, it's a corner lot, and the setbacks on the right corner, which is Lydia Street, he's got 24 feet and 10 inches. And the corner lot requires 25 feet. So according to the rough measurements, he's 2 inches off from having the setback correct. And I probably need some direction on what y'all want me to do. Number one,
You not push it back 2 inches?
do what?
You not push it back 2 inches?
Well, he's only got 20 feet on the left side. And that is right on the setback at 20 on the other side.
So he is just barely in the, I mean,
And these are, I'm sure this is just a rough estimate, for 2 inches, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the big issue is, R3 does not call for a modular home, double wide trailer.
And according to Sam, you just can't do a variance anymore
No,
like
you
that.
couldn't
That's
variance.
not legal
No.
to do that, and those shouldn't have been done that way, so we've got another dilemma.
so in our free.
And they may be a good logical reason why you couldn't put a double wide in on R3, but I don't understand it. I mean,
R3 is designed or designated to be more of a multi-unit type home,
It's right there, it says mixed use.
High density residential.
high density residential. I guess my question to you, Garrett, would be, listening to those setbacks, is that lot even conducive to R3, just getting multiple?
which supposedly it's 120 by 120 feet, 120 feet square.
And what's the minimum size of the lots?
Well, typically, for a septic tank, it's what, 10,000 square feet?
And R3 subject to.
It's an existing lot, I mean, it's
Right, well, which zone is it in currently?
R3.
It's in R3, so public water and sewer is 7,500 square feet, public water and septic system is 20,000 square feet, private well and septic is 25,000
So
square
it's 20,000 square feet for a septic tank.
You can't do
So
property.
what's 120, about 120?
44 something. So where exactly is 208 South Central?
I'm sorry, what?
Where exactly is 208 South Central?
Right on the corner of Lydia Street and South Central.
Up and south.
So why is it R3 to start with?
Well, that's what the zoning map shows us. Right there.
Wait, can you point it out there?
It's gonna slip away if I let it go. Be a bigger post.
Oh, you gotta push the, button, yeah, and keep it pushed.
Oh, I thought I was
Keep
doing
it pushed.
Keep it pushed until it turns
Until
on.
it's red now, it's on.
Alright, there you go.
Anyway, R3 is right here.
Right here.
Just see me,
It's right there on the corner of Lydia and,
So this is
Central.
central right here,
but it's South Central.
South Central.
South Central and Lydia.
which I believe that was previously R4. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Pull it up.
Are you talking about, when you say previous, are you talking about the map we rescinded?
Yes, I believe that's,
But did the R4s we said they can change, right? So,
the R4 is just taken away.
yeah,
That's
because they were not,
I can tell you whether it was.
I mean, I can pull it up, I'm pretty sure R4 was right in that general area. But either way, to address their issue, they can either request to have it rezoned to an adequate zone, or apply for 2 variances, minimum lot size.
yeah, but
and
they sound said we couldn't do a variance that way.
You can do a setback for minimum lot size and, setback, but not the actual.
That's what I'm saying for the rate, so you're not, you're
Right,
gonna
so you'd have,
accomplish what you need.
have it rezoned and then variance, because
Because apparently,
that's the same minimum lot size for R2, R4, it's only different for R1.
According to my map here, which was the old map, it was an R3 then too.
So it sounds like they just put it there and they're asking for forgiveness.
it's not there yet, is it?
No, it's not there.
No, it's
No,
not
he
there.
did it right, he did his
Yeah, so
due diligence.
he's following
you know,
protocol.
before he buys it, to make sure he put his,
Okay.
So,
or his units go in there.
because of the lot size, would it fit into the R4 definition then, if it were to, because we know we've gotta look at some of these.
No, R4 has the same minimum lot size requirements.
So he needs a
It
smaller
sounds
house.
like- Yeah, it just sounds like he can't do what he's wanting to do on that piece of property.
That's just 14,400 feet. And you said he has to have 20,000 for a septic tank.
Yep, that's in.
There's not
That's
sewer
in
over
any
there.
We're not sure on South Central or there.
You know, it's a no-go then.
I didn't tell which side, one side is, we don't have it. Oh, well, we're at, well,
That's North Central, South Central is on side.
that's on the Marion County side.
Now, as a town, are we, I mean, as a town of Monteagle, is there a viewpoint of why we made that R3? It's, that area right now is primarily and has always been, a mixed use type area. There's some businesses in there, there's also, you've got, and homes and mobile homes already in that area, correct?
I'm sure they are.
That's probably where we'll have to look at rezoning it, but we need to see what's
So if you
there.
wanna send me an email just for that description of what he's wanting to do, I can send you something back saying exactly what we've covered here, if you wanna forward it to him.
Yeah, I've got to get back with him tomorrow. Of course, he's wanting to get it bought.
Oh, he hasn't bought the land yet?
No, he hasn't bought it, no.
Sounds
Like I say, he's doing his due diligence before he puts
Well,
the money
that's
out.
amazingly smart.
I thought he was.
After I tell me, if you want something in writing, just send me an email.
I will.
I can send you an email.
Yeah, but
But currently, neither one fit into it.
I still have a little problem with the reasoning that why you couldn't have a double wide trailer looking like a site-built home in an R3 zone.
Well, that may be something we have to discuss as we do it. Because as we talked about putting a committee together,
Okay, so there's sewer, so that reduces the minimum lot size, so for public water and sewer, it's 7,500 square feet.
Is it on public sewer or no?
It will be.
It will be?
Should be. I mean, it's available over there.
It's
So he had-
available?
Okay, but we still hadn't got past the R3 part, that not having mobile homes. So that's still a no-go, in my understanding.
So we would have to rezone it to.
well, we'll make a recommendation, the planning and the
Yeah.
council would have to rezone it.
Right.
And the
But
two
our-
readings and,
Yeah. It's still a process.
Yeah, it's still a process, but it's also, we have to, as a planning committee, we need to determine, are we looking at rezoning it to R4, R2? Are we-
and what is the whole neighborhood?
My
I mean,
understanding, as the zoning ordinance that was passed, does not have an R4.
There is no R4s now.
So, I think the R4 is a no-go
Until we go back and revisit.
Figure out how you gonna do this.
so there is no R4, okay.
Because
So
our
where my
Well, there
concern,
is, it's just not,
That's,
It's shown on the maps, but
R3,
I don't
what
think
is
it's in,
North Central?
I
it's
don't,
in the ordinance, but not the maps.
What is it?
that's what,
Yeah, I
it's in
think
the
I'll look
ordinance,
over
not the
there,
maps.
I'm not sure there's different.
What is
It's the
North
same.
Central?
It's
R1 are also, R1 and R2 as well,
R3
Yeah.
as well.
so.
North
Well,
Central is?
typically, in the old ordinances, if it's
North
good in
Central.
R1,
Okay.
it'd be good in R2. You know, and
South
if it's good in
Central.
R2, it'd be
And
good in
it's
R3.
Scurry. What's the
Well,
plan right in
Yeah,
there?
but that's how it always works.
Is that not North Central?
Hey, Earl, what is the brown under the green right there? What area is that? What is that zoning?
It's right.
C3?
Right in there.
But what is the road that is adjacent to that? What is,
Something like this one?
no, where you at? Go straight up to the green, straight up, right there. What is
Okay.
that?
That's your industrial, that's the
Right there.
institutional district, that's
Right there where South Central is, where we're talking in the green.
right here, south.
Okay, what's the brown right under that green there?
That orange is what she put.
Yeah, the
This right
orange,
here?
That's
Oh,
the
That's
interstate.
the interstate.
okay, and then the brown, that, right there,
Well, this right here,
That's C3.
C3.
That's C3,
okay.
because they changed in the intersection. And then somewhere you've got an industrial part in there, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if South
Yeah,
Central,
that's industrial district right there.
if South Central was R2, what is North Central?
Well, that'd be right up here, the next up here, part of it is, R1, part of it's R2, and this side over here, this is the cemetery.
So Central is mixed up all the way up and
Yeah.
down.
You got
Central's
north,
1, 2, and
south.
3.
Well, you've got
Those
both
are
sides of
simple
the road in Marion
avenues.
County,
Then
you
you
know.
got Central Street up there in Campbell subdivision.
Well, we're finding out a lot we gotta fix.
So when you're doing the mixed, cause we've got something else on our agenda that deals with, switching based on, neighbors, right? So what he's got right now is that whole row is the green, right? That's,
Yeah, and when you come down, I get, the road South Central separates R1 and R3.
okay,
If you live on the right coming off the main road there, you're in R1. If you live on the left, you're in R3.
and R3 is no mobile homes,
According to the ordinance.
okay.
But it can be an R2.
It can be North Korea.
But do you want to spot, zoning ordinances for each,
Well,
each case?
I'm gonna get into,
You can't
I don't think the state says
Legally.
they're illegal, but it's just not practical.
Well, and
not.
Sam's advising not to spot
Yeah.
zone.
What they say is, if you do spot zone, you can't spot zone it because it benefits only one or two people.
Right.
Has to benefit everything.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
And it should never be spot zoning according to Sam,
I
and her directions.
I get it.
Well, and there's a thought, I mean, I guess there's a thought to think about, the idea of changing it to R3 is you can build a traditional home there. You can have,
But you can't have mobile
you can
homes.
have an apartment, you could build an apartment complex or, I know, so my question is, yeah, we can't put a mobile home there, and yeah, we feel bad that you can't put a mobile home there, but is there a reason why we're doing this? Like, the planning point is that, hey, here's the future of Monteagle in that area, and as land is sold and cycled through to the next owner, what are we wanting to happen to those properties? Are we
Right.
wanting them to put mobile homes in those areas?
Right.
Or are we wanting to recognize that, hey, we need some apartments, we need some townhomes, we need, more smaller, some
Patio
homes,
homes.
patio homes built, traditional type homes in that area instead of mobile homes.
And that's what they allow.
And that's what R3 is, and that's how it's zoned, and so just because
He
this
wants it.
gentleman wants it, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to grant it to him.
Well, the big problem about all this is, whoever the owner of that property is, he's screwed. It's no good for anything. Unless it's on city sewer.
Well, it is on city sewer, Jefferson. So,
Or it can be, or it can be.
yeah,
So it can be on city
Sewer is
sewer.
available on that street.
But he'd have to pay sewer tax and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but that still gets us back to the R3 part, so that's still, but I'll take care of that, I'll send you all that, and then I'll get back to them, make them happy, and we'll go from there.
I'll agree with you on that.
Number 2 on my list, we had a problem with, Troy Rollins' piece of property up on Central Street. And he has been sent a letter that has been passed around, and I have not heard back from him. So, I'll probably wait another week, and then I'll call him and see what his values are. If I still can't get that with him, I guess we'll have siding for it. 12 Payne Avenue was a non-conforming use, double wide modular home, that was in a commercial district. That non-conforming use has now been remedied, there's nobody staying there, and the owner has applied for a permit to go ahead and fix the porch and go ahead and finish the building out back. And there's no reason why I can't go ahead and sign the permit for her to do that. She told me she had 2 or 3 interested parties, and there's like an insurance company or some people like that that's gonna move in there, and she's gonna rent it to them.
so it's gonna become a commercial use
Will be
there.
a commercial use.
Which is what it's zoned for.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Alright, my last item here, y'all may not be aware of this, I know the mayor is, model lighting ordinance. I have read through that 2 or 3 times. And anyway, this is it right here, and what it is an anti-light pollution ordinance. And just like the big companies that have all these lights around their businesses and all this kind of stuff, this is a way to soften the glow of the lighting. Now, there's all kind of, I'm still working on this, studying on it, and I'm probably gonna request it maybe, and you guys, I think, Gary, have you ever heard of that before?
I know,
Let's
yeah.
send it.
Okay.
Did we send it to
I'm not
you?
familiar with what that is.
This is the one Nashville uses, this is
Okay.
the model that Nashville's now adopting, and if we were looking at maybe utilizing it, I'm not sure really, Earl, who actually created that one?
Well,
I know Nashville's using it now.
yeah, there's two associations that are responsible for this. That's the Joint IDA-IES. IDA is, yeah. IES is Engineering Society of North America. And the other one was International Dark Sky Association, IDA. So they're the ones that created the ordinance, but like I say, I'm not comfortable, I don't know who y'all would get to enforce that. I'm guessing it'd probably be me, but, I'm not schooled on that type of stuff.
Well,
I mean, the lumens and anti-this and anti-that.
I think one of the things that we were going to do, of course, the only agreement that's being done in the RBT situation is they had agreed to this type of lighting model, but what we wanted to do as far as the council, and as we start planning, is making sure, just like we did landscaping, we're in place for any other facility that came in, or any other business that came in, knowing this is an ordinance that we want you to follow, you know, and this is the way it's gonna be designed from this point on, because it's hard to back up and get somebody to do something if you don't have an ordinance in place. So that's the reason we want to go ahead and come up with some model we could adopt, you know, and, that's something else we can talk about, well, the planning commission's gonna, the council with the planning commission.
Yeah, and of course, to implement that, I would probably say that it need to be in the zoning ordinance. And it'll be a review of it when you do it, and you approve the site plan.
And that's something we're gonna have a committee to start working on that in municipal codes, because the two do not match right now.
Yeah.
And I plan on doing that by the next meeting,
Well,
because I'm working on a committee that can
I'll
start
be,
reading and making sure they match.
what I'd like to do is, have some workshops on this particular ordinance, and then maybe maybe somebody comes in that has adopted it, been doing it for a while, and they can tell us how it works, and give us a lot of details on how it needs to work and all that.
What you want to, just send it tomorrow or the next day, we'll schedule it, and then whoever can be here can be here. We'll work with your schedule and get it done,
Okay.
and get somebody to come in from the.
I'll get with you tomorrow, we'll try to
Okay,
set something up.
and anybody wants to hear it, you know, they're welcome, it'll be a
But I
public
just
meeting.
I just don't feel comfortable recommending something, until I've gone through it, and I feel comfortable that I can handle it, if you understand what I'm saying. I know what I'm
Well,
doing.
yeah,
I don't even know what a halogen and LED bulb is
Yeah,
these
Lord,
days,
yeah.
so I mean,
And it's very comprehensive.
all right, hold that thought, point of order.
Just point of information, does Sequatchie Electric offer that kind of lighting?
not yet,
No.
I don't think so.
What it amounts to, the best I can tell is, right now, is based on, and there's two ways to do it. The prescriptive method is based on the square feet of whatever the hardscape is. That's the concrete or the asphalt. How much square feet you got, and then you have to provide a schedule of the different light fixtures, and they're all scheduled on how many lumens that they create. And depending on the size of the property, is what the light fixtures have to be, less than a maximum number for that square footage of that property.
And that's a 10.
Well, just to follow on real quick, I did a project which was street lighting. The sensor was in the fixture, the bulb was a washdown, and the engineering department of the electric company did all of that. And the electric company did it, it's like Sequatchie does here, they put up the pole, you pay for it, and then they maintain it forever. So, I don't know if that is this, I'm just.
Well, this is for individual businesses we're talking about as they come in, and of course, we would implement ours as we change our own lighting or develop more for the town. We would have to conform to the same thing too, but this is to come up with a model for businesses coming in now and future businesses, that we can have something that's got some teeth into it, that they will have to follow suit, not just, request it, because a lot of times people don't wanna do it. You know,
Well, ironically, this particular ordinance exempts any right-of-way lighting or street lighting, that's not part of this deal.
Well-
It's just for the businesses, and it's also residential.
Yeah.
That's something else that,
That
I
needs
don't
to
know
be
whether
looked
we
at.
wanna adopt a residential at the same time, but that's something you need to look at. Residential or commercial.
I just remember when, the car wash went in and the Monteagle end got blasted.
Well, I mean,
Remember
but
that?
that was when, now I do know when Pollock, well, it was Steve Williams, he did elimination of lights, if you remember, Earl. He did things that wasn't required to do. So, of course, that was Steve Williams, who was a developer then, as Wilco is, so, and now I know Pollock does conform to certain things, and apparently RBT's agreed to conform to it, so.
It's not an uncommon,
No.
it's not an uncommon request in many municipalities and things like that, so it's not something bad to delve in deeper as.
We just need to have them in place,
Yeah,
because people won't do it if they don't have to.
correct.
That's what we
One thing
found
I
out.
learned when I went
Anywhere
through
we
the
can
ordinance
get
was,
it.
you can see lights 125 miles away.
Wow.
Anybody have any questions for me?
I have a quick question. Someone brought to my attention the fact that there's a, potential tiny home community on Central. Have you seen that?
On Central,
Yeah, on the way heading out towards the bluff.
well, it's not in the city limits, I don't know.
Is it not in city
Where
limits?
were you talking?
I talked to him again today. It's not gonna be tiny homes.
Oh, okay.
I had the wrong communication when I talked to him.
Is it a development in Central that he's not aware
They haven't started yet. They're in the process of trying to get all their surveying and all done, so I don't know what they're doing just yet.
Now, this Central Street or
This
Central?
is-
They're asking you.
of? Well, we don't know anything about it, that's over,
Yeah. North
that's
Central.
over behind the assembly, so maybe something you need to check on our own, but they haven't brought anything to us, cause we weren't aware of it. But there's no tiny home communities that can be developed in Monteagle right now.
Well, now, just to update everybody too, there has been some feelers put out for putting tiny homes out on Laurel Lake Drive.
Yeah, that was a while back.
And,
Are tiny homes allowed in Monteagle city
Currently.
limits?
according to your ordinance, there's no tiny homes allowed in the city limits of Monteagle.
I will point out right there that the one reason why I kind of question about that R3 is you rezone that and you're opening the door for that.
Into an R4.
Yes.
But then see, the thing that,
Well,
they
even.
well, it's not R3, is it? I think it's only R4 for tiny home.
Which I have no opinion, it doesn't matter.
Well, the one you're talking about, Laurel Lake, they came and talked to us last November. And they wanted us to guarantee we would do sewer, which is, there's no sewer out there. There was a lot of things, and they were talking 170 homes in a small area
Yeah,
at that time.
well,
That's
that's a 5 acre tract, or one area out there, and
So
you
you
talk about
can't be told
waiving
there's
some
a-
problems with the neighbors.
Well, cause it was also going to butt with, Cliff Tops, the ones they were talking about, but they never have came back to talk to you anyway yet. I know, you and I talked about it briefly, if you recall.
Yep.
And then they rescheduled the meeting, then they didn't schedule it again.
Earl,
So-
I have a question, is mine to know. You are the codes enforcer, what is your job?
I'm actually the building inspector,
You are the building inspector, okay?
and I also do the zoning part.
You do the zoning
Okay.
part, okay? But as far as these ordinances and things that we're trying to begin really paying attention to with our commercial businesses that are coming in, and, as they begin to come and the planning takes a look at them and we approve them to be built, and then as they are being built, you are there to inspect the building as far as the state codes and international codes and things like that. As far as the zoning ordinances, as far as the, landscaping and all this type of stuff that then is with a commercial business, garbage enclosures and all this kind of stuff. Once the building is built, your job is finished, and then who continues to enforce that?
Well, 2 years ago, I did everything. And, I came to city council and talked to them, and I actually told them I'd just like to be a building inspector. I didn't want to do the signs anymore. I didn't want, property maintenance
That's his former administration.
So, no, I don't do property maintenance, and I don't do the landscaping. But I agree, what I did to agree to with the former council for the RDT, told them I would do that. I'll do the landscaping on that project. Now, I'm also responsible, once y'all approve the site plan, I'm responsible for making sure that whatever's on that site plan is there or not there. You know, that's what I do, that's part of the zoning part.
But now what we're doing now, if there's a complaint, sometimes Earl will look at it, and then if it goes to, it needs enforcement, Jack will be the one that actually will cite the person. Or he'll go by and he will write him a letter of citation, not necessarily to court, until it comes to a point it's supposed to be cited to court. So Earl and Jack have been working together. They've had like 4 incidences that we've been called on, that Jack's actually went and addressed it. So he's just signing it under the police department now.
We kind of work together, but he does the enforcement part.
Yeah,
But-
so-
I just know that that's a, concern of the community, as well as something that as we begin to develop and we move forward, that we definitely need to make sure we're paying attention to. Because
Well,
if we don't.
in my experience, and what I've seen, Monteagle, the town of Monteagle and the city officials and planning commission, all that place has been pretty full over the last year.
Yeah.
And hopefully, once something gets resolved one way or the other with that, we can move on to other things that need to be looked at. We might do that.
And there's been suggestions in how we could work on, as we move more into maybe a full-time fire person or something that could do some of that, that could offset the costs for those things. But right now, the police department's handling it. As far as the actual siding, I know there was one house out toward North Bluff, and actually I went by there the other day, it's been cleaned up now. You know, Jack did give him he sided him, but he gave him like 60 days to clean it up because the guy had some health issues, but now it's been cleaned up. And then there's like 2 today we discussed that he had to go side them. So, but if people don't sometimes fill out a complaint form, and we don't know what's out there, cause you know, they do have other responsibilities, so we do need people to fill out forms too, to let us know this is a valid concern, you know.
Well, in my opinion, property maintenance needs to be police officers anyway. They respect an officer telling them it needs to be cleaned up a lot more than me sending them a letter, you know, who's he?
Right.
But typically, somebody with uniform and badge, they'll respond much better.
And if Jack's got a complaint, then he can take it and he can pursue it too, and he documents his report.
I've got a really strange question, because I see it every day going to work, is, RVs, residing next to a, state boat house.
Next to a what?
I mean, it's in the yard of a, regular house. Using.
RVs
Yeah.
cannot be used for residence. The definition of a recreational vehicle is a maximum of 7 days, and there are for nothing but recreational use. Now, people like to put them in the yard, and if you don't stay on top of that, we've tried, that's another thing that we've tried a whole lot to fix. You know, if you let it go, people put them all the way around the house, they rent them out to people. And in R1 zone, you have 4 RVs there and they're rented out.
So it can be parked there, but not used.
Legally, the zoning ordinance specifically says that RVs cannot be used for
So
residential.
if it's one you see, if we can, somebody fill out a form, then they can address it, but otherwise, I mean, really, people are busy and we're not out looking for, you know, people's yards, just, I mean, you know, it's not like we're trying to be the yard police, I mean, but we will address it if we have to. There's several things that people call, we have to go look at, but, you know, and we're not ignoring
You
anything.
think you got an RV in your yard that you use and the kids want to spend the night in it for over the weekend or something, that's okay. But when you got somebody that's permanently living in one, the health and safety issues in an RV are just not there like they should be at home. Anyway, anything else?
Gotcha.
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Earl.
All right.
All right, we have no old business, that's exciting. New business, this is you, Garrett.
So there was a request for a variance property, wanting to build different buildings, is he here? Mr.
No, I don't think so. Mr. Maxwell?
Right, I was hoping that we could kind of have that conversation, exactly what he's wanting to do with this piece of property, because I'm telling you based on the phone call off the top of my head, what he was wanting to, rather hear specifically from him, what he's wanting to do. It sounded like he wanted to build an extra home for his kids, period, to live in the future. Again, I'm summarizing the phone call from a couple days ago. So based on that, I recommended he rezone this piece of property. He said he wanted to build it, I think it was called a glass house, I didn't know exactly what that was. I was hoping that he would be here to explain exactly what he wanted to do, and ultimately, I recommended that he rezone this piece of property. Couldn't get a variance for it, couldn't get a variance to permit a use that's not permitted in C2. That's just the fact. And therefore, I recommended he rezone it. And so I told him if he submitted it, he could have it on today's agenda. He submitted an application for R4, rezoning from C2 to R4, which is general residential district, which doesn't seem adequate. And so I called him, I spoke with him and said, R2 seems appropriate, or R1 seems appropriate. You got R1 across the street, you're directly adjacent to, the museum's actually zoned R2, so I said that's a more adequate zone. I would recommend going to one of those, and he said that R2 was okay. And so in my recommendation, I ultimately recommended approval for R2 and not R4, and that was with Mr. Maxwell's written consent that he formally rescinded the R4 request and wanted to change to R2.
But now, normally, don't we have them here to present when they make that request? So
Yes.
I would almost, I'm just saying it's gotta be recommended to the council anyhow, but we're not having him here. I would almost say we wait till May to address
Right,
it
yeah,
personally,
that's why I
because I
wanted to
don't think the council can
That's why I wanted to
address
ask
it
it first,
without
to
him
see if
being
he was
here.
here to address any of the questions that you might have about his future plans for the property. Because ultimately, he's not here to discuss it, and when I told him that he needed to be here or somebody here to represent his request, I'd recommend tabling it until May now. And that would be under old business in May.
Yeah, the permit he applied for was for just an addition on the existing structure, but it was not conforming use, and you can't change the footprint. I did not refer that.
Is it C2 right now, right?
Sorry, what?
It's C2 right now. Where is it located? Just
Right beside, you know where the museum is, right beside the Bobby's little house there, that Kim used to live in.
yes.
I mean,
In between the,
that
how
hotel.
long you get artery? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but so he,
So I would recommend
Yeah.
tabling it until May due to lack of representation. That's my formal recommendation.
commissioners, do you agree with that? Tabling that till May meeting?
We have to make a motion.
Do we make a motion on that?
I make a motion, we table it until he's present for maybe.
He was at Nashville, but I was gonna say I did let him know that somebody needed to be here to represent his request.
I'll second.
All right, Doreen second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion approved. All right, any other properly presented new business?
Unless somebody else, I guess that would be it.
I know it's not an exciting meeting like it's been in the past, but, yeah.
Has a site plan been submitted?
It won't be till May.
To May.
May, okay.
All right,
That's been put out to May.
Gary, anything else? I'm still fascinated by this tiny home thing because it's all over us. So we don't have an R4, is what you're trying to tell me.
Right,
And so the tiny home,
when the town council approved the zone ordinance and the map in January, essentially what that did was remove R4 from the map, but it still allows for it in the ordinance. So it's still there, it's still allowable in R4 zoning district, but it has yet to be established. So it would have to be a rezoning request from whatever property they're looking at to R4. If they're looking to have, well, how many homes? You said 170?
I mean, it was a large, I don't even remember, do you, Earl, but it was quite a few. Yeah, it was an unreal number that they discussed, and again, they didn't meet again, they scheduled a meeting, then they canceled it, and then they haven't rescheduled it, so that was.
Sounds like they're still under consideration.
well, just, yeah, so any of our property, that's my concern is getting ahead of the game. And so any property can be rezoned to R4 is what you're saying.
Yes
They
and
can
no,
request-
I
They
mean,
can request it.
they can, yeah,
Request it, right.
but that
And we
doesn't
look
mean,
into it.
yeah.
But R4 zoning, you know, from what I'm seeing here is pretty much anything goes.
It's
Yeah.
very flexible.
It's, yeah, exactly.
So you could, so when you're looking at like, an RV park or something that would be R4. Cause that's
Yeah.
temporary dwelling, right?
Or like a mobile home park, I mean,
Right,
you know, you could have that, I don't think we currently have one,
no.
right?
What's crazy, a double wide modular home can go in an R4, it can't go in R3.
You were still back to that earlier.
I know, let me ask you, isn't there a difference in the definition in a modular home and a trailer, and I'm not trying to be critical here, because there's nothing wrong with where anybody lives, but there's a difference in a modular home, and they're in, by definition, and a trailer.
Recreational vehicle.
Yeah, or heavy,
In my opinion, is a modular home typically comes in with wheels, and they take all that off and set it on a firm
so it makes it
foundation.
permanent,
Now, a trailer, they leave the wheels on.
it stays, it can be moved.
Right, the way it's phrased in the land use table is mobile homes, comma, double wide, mobile homes, comma, single wide.
Yeah.
That's how it's phrased, and then there's campgrounds, I believe.
So a customary home occupation is,
Would not be in a double wide,
would be a, okay.
right? I mean,
Well, I think it's called, it's like an American built home, it's a stick
So
built, right?
Monteagle can't have
And it's
any
brought in parts,
single-
isn't it?
Yeah, stick built.
Yeah, it's called a stick build, but it's brought in sections.
Yeah.
not unless it's,
Yeah,
I'm
and
just
tiny,
talking about
as far as
one
tiny homes,
mobile- one tiny
anybody
home.
can talk to, everybody's got a different
If it
definition.
was,
Right.
So, yes. I would
stick
like to
built,
mention
yes,
that.
but if it
No,
was like one of those trailers that,
even the
that are
stick
going
built,
in a
there's
tiny
a
home.
certain, size.
Now,
There's a certain size.
here's the way I do it.
Cause someone tried to build one and got denied.
So what is considered a tiny, how many square feet is considered a tiny home?
Well, the definition, go ahead, he's got a definition of zone.
Well, I'm not, I can look up tiny home definition, but the way it's written up for a tiny home is that it would be in a tiny home subdivision, which is allowed and permitted in R4. That's if they want more than one.
But if someone came to me and wanted to build a home that was 950 square feet,
So, right, so
That
then,
would be a
this actually came up, and that's why I'm,
Okay.
this actually came up last week, and therefore, somebody's looking at purchasing a property that's R1, and they wanted to build a tiny home on it, I said, how many times, they want to build 4 tiny homes.
So they're talking rentals, right?
And so then and then
Yeah.
and then Airbnb, and so, that's when I was like, okay, R4 tiny homes have been sure, but initially, I thought they just wanted 1. And so what I told them was that, sure, that'd be allowable in R1, 2, 3, 4, you could build down to your minimum lots, the minimum, what am I looking for?
Minimum square footage.
Yes, which is 800 square feet in R1, 600 square feet in R2, 600 square feet in R3, and it's got 0 feet in R4.
So zero lot line?
Pardon?
So you have a zero lot line in R4, is that what you're saying?
No, it just doesn't have a minimum square
Doesn't have a minimum square footage of what can be, but
So you can build a stick-built tiny home.
yes.
down to 8 or 600 square feet.
Just
no,
one.
No, it's not a permit.
Nope.
Any tiny homes, you know, it's less than 120, got one room at least 120 square feet, and a bedroom less than 7 feet in any direction. So
Good.
that's-
So you've got a definition that we can,
Well, I got what the international building.
and that's what we need to use.
Okay, so there we go, so there's more to that than just 600 square feet or 800 square feet, right?
But if I wanted to build
There
a
is.
tiny home, I could do it, just one,
Yes.
for me to live in.
On a minimum lot size, you could in that area, but you couldn't do multiples and rentals and
I don't want
developments,
nobody
is
around
what
me. I
people were
just want a
doing.
tiny
But you have to, you gotta do what Earl says and do the
And you can
minimum
do-
amount for, living room?
One room has to be 120 square feet.
One room, so
That's-
there you go.
That's my whole tiny
Any
home.
other room in the house cannot be less than 7 feet in any direction.
7 feet?
So then what are the ones in
You
Tracy
can do
City?
that.
Well,
They're not, I mean, they're not in Arizona, so we really don't.
Here's what those are. There's certain manufacturers make tiny homes.
Mhm.
Clinton Mobile Homes makes a tiny home, but when it's made, it comes out of the factory, it's got that Tennessee HUD sticker on the right-hand side of the door. That makes it, that tells anybody that house has been designed supposedly under some codes and been built based on regulations that the state requires.
Is that considered a manufactured home?
Yes.
sure it wouldn't get, you know.
That's something we'll have to find out once we.
So then, we worry about
That's
other
what,
zoning.
most of those are, I mean, I have no idea, I've never been up there. Of course, you have a retreat over here right outside, it's in the growth
Yeah.
plan of Monteagle.
Mhm.
And it's
It's a very fine
community.
line.
Well, it's gonna be coming up.
But see, I don't have to
So
do any
just-
of that, because they don't require a
And that's
permit, because
approved,
it's not
that's
in
approved
city.
because it's in the growth area, right?
Well, yeah, but that really we didn't, I think this Tracy City did it.
With that,
So, I know there's still an
Right,
issue with the water.
There's one in Tracy City, and there were two in our urban growth boundary last year
there's one.
that we're trying to do.
Right next to us.
Yeah.
That were completely.
So now, though, that's something we do need to look at to be consistent with municipal codes and also with our own codes as we start working on this project. And as we look at our map to identify, and see something else that was just brought up while we're talking is multi-use, like in commercial properties, because we did have some that was multi-use and we had some that was not. So,
You know,
Right.
you go back commercial and residential and freight
Yes.
truck,
yes.
typically that's what they call a PUD.
Well, like down the corridor, not this corridor, the other corridor, let's say we've got like section 10 as we identify those.
I'm sure the zoning ordinance has something to do with that. That's where you build a building and the first floor is strictly commercial, or sales, it's a sales part. Second floor, third floor can be residential. Just call it. I don't know what that means, with PUD.
So we'll have to look at
Planned
those
unit
things.
development.
That's what it is, that planned unit development.
And that changed during your last administration.
Well, we had it, remember me and Jenny,
Yeah.
we worked on it, and then they reverted it back,
Oh,
so now we
okay.
need to go back to
Okay.
looking
I think
at it.
that's
So,
important.
cause it went chaotic there for a while, cause remember, we set the first landscaping ordinance into place, and, well, Peter, you were part of that too, and Earl, cause we met with people,
I think we need to
Yeah,
have some of that
but we need
going.
to go back to it like we
You
were.
have a lot more control than the flag.
So, and of course, that's when firewalls became, essential and other things that we started enforcing it. But that's something we gotta go back to and like take a safety,
I agree.
looking at those two things, cause they're not consistent right now.
Which is something, I think we all just need to be aware of what's coming down the path and, be ahead of the game, that's all.
And we do need to protect our areas, because that's one of the biggest mistakes I made, and, I'll say I did make it, because it always comes back to the leader up or down. If I had only thought the corridor, at that time we had the grant, for the sidewalks and lighting that would have completed all the way out to the interstate. And we had a plan in place, and if we had only thought about rezoning then, but you just think everybody's into this plan and it's all gonna go forward, and then it sort of went backward, but we can fix it this time.
But we can, and I mean, there are many things that we need to.
Yeah, start on.
With the RVT development being a big thing to jump on our plate, I think one thing that many of us need to, it's an emotional thing for the community, and it's an emotional thing for many people, but as a planning committee, we're here and we've got rules and we've got ordinances and we've got zoning, we've got all these things in place for us to be able to look at it in a non-emotional way. And to take the due diligence to look at that and hear what the state has to say, hear what, other professionals and people that know more than we do come to us and tell us about what the site plan is and what what the impacts are gonna be. Because as we approve this as a planning committee, or as we review the site plan and Garrett looks at it and things like that, there's gonna be lots of things that we need to make sure that our I's are dotted, T's are crossed before we recommend it to the city, to move forward. And then also just to, be aware of what impact that's gonna have and how we're gonna take care of those impacts, because it's a big development,
And not only that, is that we do consider neighborhoods and community, and everybody can work together, because I think that sort of got lost again. I'm not saying for any reason, but it did. But if we can bring that back together and make it happen again, then hopefully this will not transpire again. Then we can put safety measures into place. That'll be something in the next 2 years we can do regardless of who's here. But this is zoned quarter A, and then you've got the two sections to it. Yes, sir.
On that note, of safeties and stuff, maybe Mr. Peter Beasy can, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually the site plans, Southeast Tennessee Development kind of gets those, and they show up here, they're supposed to be 2 weeks in advance. But most of the, and this is in the past, maybe you guys have rectified this already, most of the time, you guys get to see that the night of the meeting.
No, we get
Oh,
theirs
okay.
ahead of time now, we're
Okay,
getting
well,
theirs
Okay.
at least 2 weeks.
Right, it's supposed to be here 2
Okay,
weeks in
yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
You've had the packet for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
why we're, okay.
Because
I'm
they
just
didn't
saying,
print theirs
because
out.
others have printed it off tonight.
Yeah.
And then I know for a fact, based on email chains I have seen, that between Garrett and Iva and stuff, that the day before they get there, the revised plans get there the day before. So I was just asking that if I know they're supposed to be here 2 weeks in advance, if there's some method of making sure that everybody on the planning commission gets that information, that in that 2 weeks in advance, and it just doesn't, show up at night, go, gosh, I kind of forgot about it, and now I'm looking at a site plan, and I'm asking Garrett Haynes, hey, what do you think, Garrett? Can you take 15 minutes, go out in the hallway, and look at this real quick, and then come back in and approve it? I mean, I'm just looking to avoid those, and you guys sound like you're on board with it, that's where you were going. I just want to say, maybe something in place that makes sure that the planning commission members know that something has been submitted, so you guys can say, hey, I gotta make sure, I gotta stop by City Hall and take a peek at it before the meeting. That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to argue. I'm just trying to get it so that Garrett gets it 2 weeks in advance, you guys get it 2 weeks in advance, you guys look at it before the night of the meeting. That way, and it could be, something real simple, maybe you don't have to, and you can just take Garrett's word for it and say, hey, Garrett, you recommend it, he recommends it, you guys approve it.
Well, now, let me, and just for Garrett, he gets it to us, we won't take it if it's not 2 weeks, period. Because we're not gonna
Right,
get
it's
in
an
another,
ordinance says you gotta
we're
have it
not
2
gonna
weeks.
get in that
Again.
debacle again, we'd love to have it 3 weeks ahead of time,
Right.
but he timestamps these things. Now, tonight, we gotta get a new printer in home, so mine was in here, I've been in and out of the office about 3 or 4 times a week, so I did not take mine to Coffee County. For some reason, I know they had it in email, whether they printed it out or not, that was something that wasn't printed out, so, cause normally Debbie doesn't print out for everybody, so that was
So
the
you
reason.
get the site plans and the emails also?
Yes, we get site plans, everything that's submitted to him, he sees that we get a copy of.
Sure,
And
yeah,
so-
so the deadline that you're talking about, just to clarify, the 14 days,
Right,
that's the deadline for any developer to
Correct.
get to at least me.
I understand that.
That doesn't mean that they get it, that doesn't mean that I'm sending it directly to them 14 days prior.
They should all have it 14 days in advance, just like you get it 14 days in
Sure,
advance.
I'm just saying, the 14 days.
That
as long as they get
ordinance
it to
is
me,
for
if
the,
they bring
is
it
for the
here.
planning commission. It's not, it doesn't say for Garrett, it says the planning commission should have 14 days in advance.
Sure.
I'm just looking for that to actually happen. When you get it, if it's, wow, it's right on 14 days, boom, you gotta put it out to these people so they can review it. And so that they can get it, have the information, be able to look at it, and then they can make an informed decision on the night that they have to vote. That's all I was saying. You guys, that's where you were going. I thought you were going with your discussion. I just wanted to emphasize and say, I think it's a good idea.
Well,
So I was agreeing with you,
And he does
on
do
getting
that.
this stuff done.
And I mean, that's one of the things he's done due diligence with us, because it's much our responsibility to see those dates are met as it is his, because they work for us. So I'm not gonna throw him under the bus unless he intentionally has something, and I don't think he's going to, you know what I'm saying, honestly. But it is also for us to follow up with him. So he and Deb and he and I, and of course now he and Sam and I have had a lot of communications, and we continue as we fix a lot of these things, not just this situation. Because we've got multiples we're working on, and we wanna make sure we do them right.
Right,
And
and I was trying to encourage that.
And that's what
No, I
we're trying to
wasn't
do,
trying to
sir.
argue.
And we
Fingers
appreciate
out.
that, because, we're not perfect, we don't claim to be, and we don't, really, we hate the situation as much as you do, whether you believe it or not. We're just trying to take care of Monteagle, and then see it doesn't happen to Monteagle again.
And I just didn't print out my information.
But let me ask you, what about Parks and Recs? I know that's something we're working on. Is Sam doing that with us? Because I know that's something we've gotta bring if we're gonna apply for money. I know I'm meeting with the assembly about maybe us working on a joint project, but we wanna start applying for some Park and Rec money.
The local parks and recreation fund?
Yes, so
Yes, so,
what do we need to do with that for our next meeting too?
right, so essentially what needs to happen is the deadline for submittal was back in October of 2020. Due to
Well-
COVID, they extended that deadline until, I believe, it's September. And so, they extended that deadline for communities that did not have a, no, you're sorry to put me on the spot here.
The plan.
So, getting back on track. Deadline's now September, and they extended that deadline for communities that don't have local parks and recreation plans that have been updated that's what we need to look at doing. We need to review our Parks and Recreation plan and make sure that's up to date and current and what we wanna move forward with.
Isn't Sam working on something for us, Tennessee, with, and we need to get you
Right,
and
so-
him
so the
together,
same thing.
and then what we need to do to make sure we're ready to start applying for that money.
Right.
If we're gonna do anything with our parks and recs, cause otherwise we won't qualify.
Right, he has said he's at least our grants coordinator and lead deputy director of our department. And so he's the one that will actually be.
Can you check with him to make sure we're doing it on this end as well as that,
Yeah,
and we
I
can
have-
follow
I
up?
have.
Okay, I just don't wanna miss the deadline to apply for money for the parks and rec.
Yeah, I'll definitely check with him, make sure we're on track.
People are definitely wanting their park back.
Well, we're meeting with the assembly and hopefully we can start one piece at a time.
Good.
You know, I mean,
So Hannah Pickett Park is on the, agenda.
actually, I'm meeting with Scott next Wednesday. Cause we've been talking for months and about doing things together. So hopefully, like I said, we can do one piece at a time.
Great.
You know, see what we can do.
So, yeah, whatever you guys wanna talk about that, it just has to be well in advance of September.
You wanna do it like next month? Let's have some happy time. Come on, Garrett. Come on, Garrett, let's have some happy things. Parks and recs are good. We're going to paint the background out back there in the back so we can do movies. Come on, we're gonna bring community together.
Sure, I'd almost recommend, having some sort of workshop to address
Well,
it, just
so
to
this-
review, we can get that started, having some sort of community workshop about the Parks and Rec plan, that way we get the community feel of how they want this park to.
If you want to send us a date that's good with you, then we'll see if we can't schedule it and do a public meeting, and that way we can get started on it.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, any other, items not presented before? All right, need a motion to adjourn?
A motion?
Need a second? All right, all those in favor? All right, Leslie, get on 4-7.
Good meeting. I liked it. Useful information. How are you? Yay.
Oh, it is refreshing not to,
What is this? I never
refreshing.
If you'd like to be involved, well, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
I've got another meeting.
Have a good week. Sure. Have a good one. You too. You will. Take care.
Because we're going to be getting like, I mean, we can have a recommendation like, I am the fire department. Are you good with me?
Sorry about that.
I am.
Something good. Let's just gonna,
Realistically, that deadline is.
you know, but I think definitely put a heads up on that, that's what we all gotta be on
That
the
doesn't
same
mean
page.
that I send out,
No, but
from my standpoint, is that I don't wanna send out.
Well, and I was going to, you know that, so.
I was like, well, I just got to do every single thing you gotta get it, right, make sure.
Well, they have to do the topo for, probably something that they need to be doing, whatever that is. Yeah, that makes sense.
We're getting ready to do something.
And, you know, and I love something, just as long as it's, you know, within reality,
I have all the emails.
you know, here.
I know for a fact
That's all.
when people got it.
That's all.
So,
There's lots of interesting things going on.
I was
It sounded like you were saying that the agenda packet needs to come from me in 14 days.
And see, so let's
When
just
in
pray that
actuality,
that's
if I get something.
what they're gonna be doing.
Which
I'm gonna turn this off.
on certain projects, I need to.
Thanks, Jeff, I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.